Right then, before you scroll past or skip this, do you remember the old Marc Marquez? The one who made watching a race genuinely nerve-wracking, where you couldn't tell whether he'd finish or bin it at the next corner? The one with that absolutely wild riding style, elbow practically scraping the tarmac, bike wobbling all over the shop, yet somehow still flat out? Well, apparently that bloke is now dead, and what's emerged in his place is a brand new Marc Marquez, far calmer, far more refined. And the person saying this isn't just anyone, it's Jorge Lorenzo himself. We all know Marc Marquez burst onto the MotoGP scene in a manner that was nothing short of absurd. When he made his debut in 2013, other riders were left shaking their heads in disbelief. He rode as though he hadn't the faintest regard for his own safety, quite literally. Late on the brakes, elbow to the deck, bike on the verge of high-siding, yet somehow staying upright, and he'd just keep pushing harder. That style earned him 6 World Championship titles in the Premier class, plus 2 more in the smaller categories. 8 world titles in total, a figure that would make any rider's mouth water. But that reckless style came at a price. In 2020, a severe right arm injury very nearly ended his career altogether. This was no ordinary fracture. His upper arm bone shattered. He underwent multiple surgeries, had to be operated on again due to infection, and the recovery process dragged on for nearly 2 years. By the time he returned to the circuit, the Marquez of old could no longer be present at full capacity. After more than a decade with Honda, the team he had effectively built alongside, Marc finally made the leap to Ducati from 2024 onwards, a decision that raised plenty of eyebrows at the time. Could the baby alien really adapt to an Italian machine with a character so fundamentally different from the Honda? With Honda, Marquez could push the bike beyond its limits. The Honda RC213V was a machine that essentially bent to his will, and he regularly exploited its characteristics to a degree that simply defied logic. Ducati is an entirely different proposition. The Bologna machine demands a smoother approach, more patience, more elegance. You cannot bully a Ducati. You have to work with it. And remarkably, Marc Marquez pulled it off. Not merely adapting, he went on to claim the World Championship title in the 2025 season aboard the Ducati Lenovo, and in doing so, his riding style transformed dramatically. Now, this is the most fascinating part and the central topic of today's discussion. Jorge Lorenzo, Marquez's long-standing rival, 3-time world champion, and currently serving as coach to Maverick Vinales, made a rather startling observation. Lorenzo, who is well known for his considerable ego and exacting standards, praised Marquez in the most Lorenzo way imaginable, by comparing him to himself. "Today, when you watch Marc, he almost looks like me," said Lorenzo. "He is very smooth. He doesn't make mistakes under braking. He never runs wide. He is very precise and very fluid when he straightens the bike." Hold on a moment. Lorenzo is saying Marquez resembles Lorenzo? This is no minor compliment. This is Lorenzo declaring that Marquez has now reached the level of technical refinement that has always been Lorenzo's hallmark. It's worth noting that Lorenzo and Marquez were once polar opposites. Lorenzo, smooth and calculated. Marquez, brutal and instinctive. 2 contrasting styles, 2 different characters, 2 equally valid ways of winning. But Lorenzo didn't stop there. He went on to say that everything Marquez does now is underpinned by deliberate, considered thinking, a stark contrast to his style a decade ago, when Marquez relied almost entirely on raw courage and high-risk instinct. In other words, the Marc of old may have been more gifted in a raw sense, but the Marc of today is considerably more sophisticated technically. Some might think, so does that mean Marquez is weaker now? More conservative? The answer is, absolutely not. Quite the opposite, in fact. Marquez has successfully integrated his former strengths, racing instinct, hunger for victory, extraordinary adaptability. With new skills he was effectively forced to acquire through injury and the demands of the Ducati. Put simply, he used to win on raw talent. Now he wins because that talent has been upgraded with technique and maturity. His former personal technician, Santi Hernandez, put it rather profoundly. "I still see the competitive Marc with the hunger. The day he changes his DNA, we will stop seeing Marc and he will become an ordinary rider. But he still has his DNA." The point being, Marquez hasn't lost himself. He's simply added new layers on top of an already formidable foundation. With Marquez in increasingly fine form and preseason testing going positively, MotoGP 2026 promises to be fiercely contested. Pecco Bagnaia, who failed to defend his title last season, will undoubtedly return with a vengeance. Alex Marquez, his own younger brother, has proven himself a genuine threat, and one mustn't overlook the other riders who continue to develop at pace. But what makes this particularly compelling is that the 2026 edition of Marquez feels like the final form of every version of Marc we've ever witnessed. He has well over a decade of experience behind him, the best machinery on the grid beneath him, and a riding style that has been elevated to the standard of Lorenzo at his very peak. If that combination doesn't send a shiver down your spine, quite frankly, nothing will. So there you have it, the full story of Marc Marquez's transformation, the one that left even Jorge Lorenzo shaking his head in admiration. From the wild, heart-and-mouth racer who kept everyone on the edge of their seat, to a precision rider who has his rivals breaking out in a cold sweat. From the reckless baby alien to a smooth yet utterly lethal maestro of the circuit. Before we wrap up, I'd love to hear your thoughts. Drop a comment below right now. Which version of Marc Marquez do you think is more frightening to race against? The brutally aggressive version of old, or the calm yet razor-sharp precision of today? If you enjoy content like this and want to keep getting MotoGP coverage that's relaxed yet genuinely informative, subscribe now and turn on your notifications. Because the 2026 season is only just getting underway, and there's a great deal of drama ahead that you really won't want to miss. See you in the next one. What's fascinating about Marquez's evolution is that it mirrors a broader truth about sporting greatness, that true longevity belongs not to those who rely solely on natural gifts, but to those willing to reinvent themselves when circumstances demand it. Many champions crumble when injury or adversity stripped away what made them dominant. Marquez, by contrast, used that very adversity as a forge. The broken arm, the failed Honda years, the humbling move to Ducati. Rather than diminishing him, each chapter forced a deeper reckoning with the craft of racing itself. In that sense, the Marc Marquez of 2026 isn't merely a better version of who he was, he is, arguably, the most complete motorcycle racer the sport has ever seen.